Today on our show, we're talking about the number one show on Netflix, the number one show, frankly, everywhere right now that's sweeping the nation as we're all huddled together, close in our beds, waiting out this pandemic of evil. Let's talk about some pussy, man, on the Nerdynomicon. Welcome to the Nerdynomicon. I'm Robbie.
And I'm Adrian.
And are you ready to talk pussy today?
I am. I've been really excited for this show and to talking about it. I could not wait for season 3 of Iron Fist. And finally...
All right, I did not see that coming that way. I really did not. First off, fuck you, man. Did you even watch season 2? I don't remember.
I did watch season 2. It was better than season 1.
By a large margin.
Yes.
Far less boardrooms.
Yes.
But before we jump into that, man, let's just give everybody an update. First off, how are you doing? You're on the other side of the country from me. We've got this global pandemic. The death tolls are rising. How are you dealing, man? How are you doing?
I mean, I'm still alive, and I haven't come across any, mass burial pits yet. Nobody's been dragged up into the mountains by coyotes or any other wildlife, so, we're hanging in there. How about you? How are you doing?
Right on. Do you have toilet paper?
I do have toilet paper. I did not stock up like some crazy loon. I went to go get our normal amount from Costco because we were running low, and it took 2 or 3 visits to get that before they started rationing
people are eating
stuff.
this shit. You know they are.
It's ridiculous. They're making
at some point,
dresses.
people are gonna start They have to be. I mean, what exactly can you do with the dowels? That's what I want to know. I'm on YouTube every day looking for what to do with excess toilet paper dowels, because there is a surplus out there right now. There is an absolute surplus. There is, because they're still not stocked. Every time I go into a store, I'm doing Instacart as a side gig right now, and every time I go in there, somebody always inevitably has some sort of paper product on there. They're sold out of fucking napkins, paper towels, toilet paper, because the napkins and paper towels are going toward the people that can't get to the toilet paper. So they're over there using those gritty ass fucking napkins that you use for 4th of July picnics. You ever try to wipe your ass with a gritty 4th of July napkin?
Is that a serious question? I mean, I'm a man. Of course I have.
Yeah, me too. It's not pleasant. It's really not pleasant. I mean, it'll do in a pinch. But.
It's going to be really bad when we're out of all the paper products and they just keep moving down the line, and then we're out of full pineapples and people are just still trying to wipe with stuff, and that's the future. That is the apocalypse right there.
They're moving over to the frozen food section. They're like, what else can I do with a bagel bite?
It's can you wipe your ass with an egg? I don't know. Let's try.
But you asked how I'm doing. I'm doing all right, man. Shit's crazy out there. The streets are basically bare. It really does look like a post-apocalyptic wasteland out there. Every time I step out of the house, I go into Target or I go into Wegmans because, like I said, I do Instacart right now as a side gig. I've got a mask on that I've kind of doodled on, so people are looking at me weird because I'm looking at one of those crazy people right out of The Purge. I've got a giant skeleton smile on it. But people stay the fuck away from me when I'm shopping. So it's doing it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do.
It's forced social distancing.
That's exactly what it is.
It's
don't mess with the dude with the giant skull mask on his face, okay?
It's interesting how different people have different approaches. I don't personally have one, but you have your approach with the scary mask. I think some people, they could just stop bathing, so they just smell so bad people won't want to be around them. And then somebody on Reddit posted a picture of a guy wearing a crown with pool noodles attached to it out at different spokes out to keep people away. It's the ingenuity.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I considered going in a ghost face mask. just to see how people would react. Would they? My only fear with that is that I would be asked to leave the store, but then I'd try to quietly explain to them, people keep on walking up on me, man. I figure nobody's going to approach the dude wearing a mask from Scream.
Right.
Right?
Hopefully
and I
not.
want people to stay the fuck away from me. These are my avocados that I'm shopping for. Stay the fuck away from the avocados while I'm here. I don't care, Granny. Stay the fuck away from the avocados. I'm making guacamole, bitch.
I mean, I feel like as long as you were just carrying around that knife that you're always carrying around while wearing the mask, you could probably get by without the mask. It's your call.
Probably.
It's your call.
But you also, on a serious note, you mentioned mass graves. You do realize that they're being dug, right?
I do. It's a sad attempt at humor,
It's
but
horrifyingly, it's horrifyingly sad. I just figure we need to put in a little bit of realism and a little bit of reality into the jokes and the funny. This coronavirus is far more serious than I think any of us thought. Certainly more serious than I thought. I mean, I knew that there would be I knew that there would be death with this, and the situation has not changed. It, for the most part, affects the immuno-impaired and the elderly. But when we're looking at the death tolls in the United States, when it's over 18,000 people at the time of this recording, and as far as the statistics go, it's still a relatively low amount as far as, the percentage and mortality rate, but still 18,000 people are 18,000 lives. So a life is not just a number. And it's so disheartening to see that there are literally being mass graves dug right now in certain parts of New York City, and you're seeing the coffins being lined up.
Yeah.
This is something that I have not witnessed in my lifetime, especially here on American soil. I mean, I'm sure that those mass graves exist in the Middle East, especially after Afghanistan and Iraq and everything like that. But this is not something that I ever thought that I would see or witness here on American soil. Not in my lifetime. But here we are. And it's sad. It's very, very sad. So,
on that note, Iron Fist 3 and...
Iron Fist 3, yeah. I'm just trying to say, everybody out there, this actually is serious. Social distance as much as you possibly can. And try to find the funny in a dark place. That's what we're doing. That's what we're here to do. And that's going to be the only real downer, I think, in this episode. But don't take this lightly, man. This is really serious. And New York, California, I do know for a fact the curve is flattening out there for you guys. The curve is flattening here in New York too, but there's still a lot of states that are not really taking this seriously. They're like, coronavirus? We got the tequila Tourette's over here. We ain't scared of no coronavirus. I'll tell you what. Trump 2020! And they're just not paying attention. But all it's going to take is like one big family in Arkansas to come up here to Niagara Falls for vacation during the summer, and this shit's going to start all over again, possibly even worse. So everybody just take this somewhat seriously, man. Help us flatten this curve.
And that's why we're back. So you don't have to leave your house for entertainment anymore. You got it beamed right onto your phone, to your laptop, through smoke signals, carrier pigeons. And so, this one 25-minute episode after we cut it down should serve you for a good 3-4 months. Just play it on repeat. You'll be good.
One of our patrons and huge fan of the show, the Ogre, even said he's pretty sure that it's scientifically proven that you cannot catch COVID-19 listening to Nerdynomicon in your own apartment. It's healthier than hiking.
That's true.
There you go.
You can get a lot of STDs from listening, but not the coronavirus.
It's happened, man. Children have been conceived listening to the sultry, sexy, dulcet tones of Adrian Steve.
And they will destroy us all.
They actually might. However, the gravelly, over-the-top, puppy-doggish voice of me, Robbie P., serves much more as a contraceptive than, a aphrodisiac. So you got both of us here. You just wait for Adrian to talk. You get in there, you nail one out, you shoot a load. Then you got me, and you're like, oh God, what have I just done? What have I just done? So you got the contraception and the aphrodisiac all in one episode, man.
I mean,
and we're still healthier than hiking.
It's pretty great because honestly, we're both firm believers the planet is severely overpopulated, and that's why we let you talk so much on each episode. Is to try.
It has
to
nothing to
solve
do
that
with the fact
problem.
that I just cannot shut the fuck up. Okay, it's us trying to do a public service.
It's funny because I feel like we're kind of opposites. Like you have the natural tendency to like talk and talk a lot, and I have the natural tendency to be like very quiet and only like say a few words here or there and kind of pick my spots and snipe in a joke. But we're still like incredibly good friends.
Yeah, it's honestly a really good give and take. Although even though you don't say a whole lot, generally speaking, you're right. It is a good give and take. You give me shit and I take it.
That's what I'm here for. I wish everyone in my life realized this fact. It would make things so much easier on everybody. God damn, Robbie, you are a prophet, and you need to come and follow me around and really just make sure everyone is aware of their state in life.
So in other words, you just want me to walk behind you with a bell going, ding, 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 shame, ding, 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 shame.
I mean, I could do without the bell. Maybe like one of those signs, like the picket signs, that would be helpful.
No, we got to have something musical involved, man. You know what I could do is I could learn to play like an old 80s power ballad on guitar.
80s.
And I could just find a way to work that in, and I could just be your theme song maestro. Like Adrian starts walking and I'm just like playing Two Shot of Shine by Kajagoogoo.
Wow, that is going far back into the history of this show. That is years upon years ago.
That might even be Polygon Table level right there. I don't know.
I think it is. How long ago? Jesus, how long ago did we start this?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You and I have been podcasters for 5 years. We've been podcasters for half a decade. You and I have had 2 shows together. I've had several shows. I've been featured on close to 24 shows. So, I mean, fuck, dude, I have got an internet footprint. I never really even stopped to think about that.
Brag much? Jeez.
Sorry, not trying to brag, just trying to, see the realism. Hurdy-durdy-dur.
I just done guest spots in about 4 shows, and been doing this for years.
Just been out there, been on this show, been on that show. I'll tell you what, Trump 2020.
It's no big deal, but you got me with the callback. That's too good.
I don't know why Arkansas man just came right back there.
So anyways.
There are any Hillary bitches in here?
Iron Fist 3.
Oh, God. So Iron Fist 3.
I'm being only like 100% serious right now. Can we please call this episode Iron Fist 3, even though it's not about it at all, just to confuse the F out of everybody?
No, but we will put it in the description and I will tag it as such, okay?
I'm going to put it...
So people that are just like Googling Iron Fist 3 will stumble on Nerdynomicon. They'll be like, Nerdynomicon, what the shit is that? Ooh, listen to those sultry tones with Adrian Steve. Ooh, what the fuck is that? That abhorrent sound? The guy that won't shut the fuck up? I need to get castrated.
I'm going to put it, like, you're going to be able to change this since you do the uploads, but I'm going to put in parentheses Iron Fist 3 on there. Kind of like every 80s power ballad of all time had like, I miss you, parentheses so much baby or something like that. It's gonna be Tiger King or whatever the hell we're calling this, parentheses Iron Fist 3. But okay, I let the cat out of the bag, so to speak.
Yeah. It's a real pussy wagon of an episode, man. I say we drop the flim flam here and get into the main topic that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the #1 show in America right now, let alone the #1 show on Netflix. Everybody is talking about this, man, so that means that obviously we have to talk about it too. And we got some shit to say about this thing, man. Of course, we're talking about Tiger King.
I think the crazy thing about this show, beyond the entire show itself, but like the crazy aspect about the show is how long people have been talking about it. It's been sustained for weeks, and Netflix drops all their episodes all at the same time for almost every single show. So, I mean, the fact that this has been bouncing around while it's been out. It's been bouncing around at number one, and just everyone's talking about it for weeks is kind of impressive. You know, it's easy to maintain that kind of buzz while you have a good show, an interesting show that's releasing on a weekly basis. But if you drop everything and people are still talking about it everywhere weeks later, like, that's nuts.
It really is. I mean, I feel like this thing has even surpassed Stranger Things as far as like popularity. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think for a flash
I'm
in
talking
the pan,
about I'm talking about initial popularity. I mean, keep in mind when Stranger Things first came out, it was a little bit of a sleeper. People weren't really talking about it week 1 or 2. It took a while to build momentum, and then it became like a boulder.
if you're comparing season 1 to season 1, and then I could concede that, but I thought you were comparing like the entire property of like.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
No, not the entire property. I mean, we're right here, right now, waiting on bated breath for more information about season 4 of Stranger Things. You know, I'm still planning on, during this social isolation, going back and rewatching seasons 1 through 3 of Stranger Things, but I've just got so much to get through right now, and so honestly so much work. Not only am I doing side gigs, you know, working on YouTube videos and shit like that. And did you know that there's a movie based on Ted the Caver?
I did not know that. I'm not sure.
Neither did I.
Who's Ted the Caver?
It's one of the most popular internet urban legends like ever. It's like one of the premier creepypastas, like one of the creepypastas that started it all, like back in the era of like Smile Dog and Jeff the Killer and shit like that. But yeah, there's a movie based on it, but neither here nor there. Going back to Tiger King's popularity, everybody's talking about this, man. Like CNN is talking about it. Fox News is talking about it. Everybody is talking about this shit. So for those who are uninitiated, man, for those who are like, Tiger King, whatever is that? Adrian, tell us what this is about, because you're the one that turned me onto this.
It's almost indescribable insanity. Like, you can just start pulling like adjectives out of the air that sound ridiculous, and they more than likely will end up applying to this show. Like, Robbie,
at least in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, Robbie, you can help me out, but I mean, like, see, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It's a documentary, but it's also basically a reality TV show. The drama is insane
in a lot of ways.
There's drugs, there's murder, there's tigers and lions and other giant animals, there's polygamy, there's assassins. It's like, and it's like
there's a cult.
Every single
There's a failed 2016 presidential candidate.
Every single time you think there's no way it can get weirder than this, it keeps getting weirder. And it's consistent throughout the show. You're like, okay, well, I've seen it all. And then like 5 minutes later, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? That is not true. That cannot have happened. That's not possible.
And the thing is, I've actually sat down and researched, like, in between episodes. Brooke and I watched this on a span of about 3 days, which is actually kind of difficult for us because it's only 7 episodes. We're the type that like to binge things right through.
Yeah.
So I actually sat down and did a lot of research, and I could find very, very, very few inconsistencies with this show. Like, of course it slants in one direction, pays more attention to Joe Exotic, who is the self-proclaimed Tiger King. So this really is the Ballad of Dirty Joe. You know what I mean? It is the Ballad of Joe and his interaction with the other people. But the interesting part is it spends at least an episode on 3 major players: Joe Exotic, Carol, and Doc. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct. And actually, before we get that far, we might want to back up and be a little bit more about what this is about.
That's a very good point.
And one of the reasons, I'll also back up and say, I'm not sure. I think Joe Exotic is now the self-proclaimed Tiger King, but he didn't come up with that. The producer of the reality TV show that they were creating before this documentary. Wow, I can't speak.
Documentary?
Yeah, I feel like I'm pronouncing it weird.
Documentary. Yeah, it's a bit British. I'm from Arkansas. You're from England. It's fine.
It's, you know,
So Iron Fist 3.
I podcast with my pinky out. I'm very, very cultured and refined.
Very proper.
But yeah.
Yeah, you're something.
He that term was coined for him, but he absolutely loved it and took it. So we'll back up on that. But the show is essentially, or the documentary was originally about big cats being kept in cages for personal or private zoos. There was like, and right. It's talking about how these cats are mistreated and they aren't, you know, they're not in good conditions. They are sometimes bought and sold on a whim. And there's more of these mistreated animals in private zoos than there are in the wild. Like private zoos just in the US than there are in the entire wild. And it's crazy. So they kind of went into that. It gives you the
number at the very end of the series too. It's something like, I don't know, let's just say 4,500 tigers in captivity here in the United States and only like 480 out in the wild. I don't think those numbers are right, but
it's something that's kind of insane if you think about it. And the prices are surprisingly affordable. Like, that's probably not the takeaway that you should come up with. It's like you're like, oh, if I had to spare $2,000,
we're going to circle back
tiger.
to that here in a little bit. We're going to circle back to the pricing here in a little bit.
But yeah, anyways, so they just kind of went to investigate these kinds of private zoos, and I think they kind of fell into a gold mine with Joe Exotic, because at the same time that they were trying to do this Netflix documentary, there was a producer that was trying to create a reality TV show for Joe Exotic. There's like, and this guy's like, oh, this could be a gold mine. Like he was going to go and he was going to retire on it. So they kind of just fell backwards into just a phenomenal opportunity to capture more than what they were expecting. And then his twists and turns are ridiculous, and they start going and talking to the other cast of characters, that the other people that own these zoos or that have come into contact with Joe Exotic. And it's fucking nuts. Like, I'm running out of ways to describe it. It's so insane and out there, and it really seems wholly unbelievable if you just hear someone describing it, but you watch it and you see how things are going, you're like, yeah, I could believe that. The deeper the show goes, the crazier and crazier it gets, and you just can't believe it if you just read the description. If someone were to tell you what the show is about and you weren't 100% sure, you'd be like, this has to be fake. This has to be made up. But as Robbie, as you said, you went in and you actually did some research on it, and you said like most of this stuff seems to be legit, right?
If anything, some of these things are actually underscored. I mean, there is something to be said about chopping it up to tell the most cohesive story that you can. And this show goes off on tangents that I think in some ways detract from the general narrative that it's trying to tell, because it can't really help itself. A good example of that being Doc and his little zoo menagerie place, which is essentially a polygamist cult where people are forced to change their names, sleep with him, lots of times marry him. It's weird and disturbing, and the way he keeps his animals, he sticks his finger up the chimp's ass. It's really fucking weird.
Didn't he also have the girls getting like plastic surgery or something?
Yes,
too?
He did.
Like,
yes, he did.
Crazy shit. And he's getting these people very, very young, like teens, like late teens, early 20s, and people that just probably don't know any better or should.
Using very similar tactics to what we see even in politics right now in our country. This is what's going on. The only person that can solve it is me. Using cult-like brainwashing dog whistles and basically making these women beholden to him. And it is women. I mean, there are very few men on this commune. That is very evident when you watch the documentary. It's even more evident when you start looking up the true facts about this. So you've got Doc, who is a really weird person anyway. You have Carol, who has what wildlife rescue, Florida Wildlife Rescue, something like that.
Big Cat Rescue, isn't it?
Big Cat Rescue. Thank you. So here's the thing. On the surface, all three of these people seem to have the most noble of intentions in mind. It sounds like they are trying to educate people and breed these animals so that they don't go extinct and save and preserve them. They all sound and seem noble at first. But when you look a little bit deeper and you realize that Doc euthanizes a staggering amount, allegedly euthanizes a staggering amount of these animals, you start to turn your head a little bit. When you find out that Carol originally started funding her Big Cat Wildlife Rescue by selling big cats to people, the exact same practice that she is fighting tooth and nail to stop, she was a practitioner of for well over a decade and has sold quite a bit. I call that a hypocrite, first off. Secondly, she sold them at rather low prices. And when you sell these exotic pets at that price, it opens it up. And please hear me out on this. It opens that type of market up to people that obviously could otherwise never afford something like that, which sounds great in theory, but then you look at the practicality of raising an animal like this. When you look at, they even tell you how much meat one of these tigers consumes daily. When you have a creature that you can get for such a low amount, the low cost of around $2,000 at some points, and Carol was selling some of these big cats for less than that, you then have to factor in the food bill. So the people that are, of more modest means that think, wow, I think it would be awesome to have a panther and only $800, of course I'll buy one. First off, this is a wild animal. Secondly, then you have the food bill. You realize you can't take care of this animal. Lots of people will just release it into the wild.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. And that also most times ends up resulting in the death of that animal anyway.
And possibly people or other animals
Not even possibly, probably.
Yeah.
Because these are predators.
Yep.
Then you dig even deeper into Carol and you find out that she, to this day, is still a suspect in her, let's call him ex-husband's disappearance and probable murder at this point. She is still a person of interest. I could not find any place official, and I did look. I looked on FBI websites, and I actually did look into police archives because this interested me. They are very careful not to use the term prime suspect, but she is still, to this day, in 2020, a person of interest in the disappearance of her ex-husband.
As she should be, if what we were told in the documentary is true. She seemed to gain a lot from him disappearing.
What we were told in the documentary was a portion of the story, a large portion of the story, yes, but the rabbit hole does go deeper, and we don't really have the time, nor is this the type of podcast where we're going to start spinning conspiracy theories and unsubstantiated facts or anything like that about real life people. Because I'm telling you right now, dude, it actually gets fucking crazy when you start looking into some of the testimonies that people have given. It gets fucking crazy. But there is a very large amount of evidence that points to the fact that Carol was instrumental in the disappearance and probable murder of her ex-husband. Then you see Joe Exotic, and for the longest point in this show, he was the person that... How do I want to word this? I don't like any of them. And I think that they're all batshit insane. I thought he was definitely the craziest, but also arguably the least malignant out of the three of them. Then the show continues.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is you are trying to find some redeeming quality in anyone. And I mean, I think I don't think they intentionally try to paint Joe as the hero or anything like this. He just happens to have the most screen time because he's the craziest character that they at least got the most footage of. So
yeah.
So I mean, so he's kind of the central character, but the longer the show went on, it's just like it becomes really, really, really hard to find any redeeming people involved in this at all. You know, not to say that everyone is a monster, but like some, especially the people that are in charge of these rescues or these zoos or whatever, they're all fucking insane. They're fucking nuts. It's crazy. And you're like, if there's any group of people that should not have access to giant attack predators, it's these assholes, the ones that have them. It's insane.
Yep. Joe Exotic is an interesting case to me because, like I just said, I saw him as the least malignant out of the three main players in this show. And then the documentary just keeps going, and I find myself having to reevaluate my stance. Because I actually thought that out of all of them, he may be the most batshit insane, do probably, inarguably, some of the worst stuff that we actually have evidence of. You know, taking out a gun and shooting a mannequin who's dressed up and has the name of Carol, the lady from Big Cat Rescue, in the head on his webisodes on the internet. He does some of the worst shit, but he seemed to genuinely care about and love his animals. But unfortunately, as the series goes on, you find out that he himself has also... Now, we don't necessarily know all of the circumstances, but we find out that he himself also has euthanized improperly several of his big cats.
Well, and I think the thing that's important before we go on too much further into that is also recognizing, they bring this up in the documentary for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, and you should. If you haven't watched it yet, even if we're talking about it, like, you should watch this. This is insane. Is that the way that they make money off of these animals is not when they're all grown up. It's when they're these tiny little lion and tiger cubs and kittens, essentially. And they're cute, and people want to come and hold them and touch them and pet them and take pictures. And they're basically, only useful.
Dude, even after watching this documentary, I want to take a picture with a tiger cub.
I do, and I always have wanted to, but now you realize, like, oh, that's one of the worst things I could do, because these people are just exploiting them. And then that very short period of time where they're tiny and cute and whatever, that's when they make their money. And then after that, it's like, okay, it's just a drain. It's just food bills, you know. So they might keep them around, they might not. They might euthanize them, they might not. Yeah.
And therein lies the problem. Why are these people like Doc, like Joe, like Carol? Carol does not by any means seem to actually give a shit about these animals. She seems to in her wording, but in her actions, she does not seem to actually give a shit about any of these. She seems to care about shutting people down. She seems to care about the attention and the altruistic view of herself. She does not seem to actually give a shit about these big cats. Why, oh why, are people like Joe Exotic not breeding these tigers to then have them re-released to the wild? Or Carol breeding these tigers to then have them re-released to the wild instead of euthanizing them, which there's strong evidence to support. And also, I think right now is an appropriate point. By the time this episode comes out, there's also going to be a bonus episode that we will cover in our next show of Tiger King. This show was such a phenomenon, they actually made another episode as almost an update. We right now do not know what is in this episode. Nobody does, including the people that are in it. Nobody knows what's in this episode, but it is coming, and by the time you listen to this, it will be out there. But why are these people not re-releasing the tigers into the wild? That is my question. There are stages that you can go to. They do it in other zoos with things like primates. So I cannot, for the life of me, and for any listeners out there with a zoological degree that is listening to my rant here and being like, oh, that's bullshit, please, for the love of God, contact us. I mean, seriously.
They might not be acclimated to the wild because from a young age, they're brought up around humans to be like pets, and they still have wild instincts. They still will do that, but I'm not sure if they'd be able to function in the wild as well as a true wild tiger or a true wild animal. They might just be sitting, well, not ducks, sitting tigers or lions out there. I'm not saying that's a terrible idea, but I mean, I don't know.
As true as that may be, they stand a better chance there than they do here.
I guess the only other thing I would say is a lot of these places seem they were operating on shoestring budgets. Like they were scraping the bottom of the barrel to find food. They were taking in volunteers or paying very, very low wages and very dangerous lines
slave
of work.
wages at some points,
Yeah.
free exploited labor in others. Carol does not pay the people that help her.
Yeah.
She is by definition using slave labor over there. Joe Exotic seemed to pay the best, but even that was, peanuts. Doc basically gets his workers to join his tiger cult, and that's how he gets his workers there.
Oh man, that would be such a great spinoff. Tiger Cult with Doc. Oh my god.
Oh dude, I would watch that.
I would watch that right away.
Oh my god. But yes, these places are operating on shoestring budgets. I mean, Joe Exotic's zoo was feeding their animals seconds meats from Walmart. All the meat that they were going to throw away that they don't serve to us.
Yeah.
They were getting it at cost or below, or even just donated at times and feeding it to the animals.
Yep.
So, yes, you're right. But there are ways around that, Adrian, Steve. For one thing, work together.
Well,
For another thing, government grants. For another thing, we live in the age of GoFundMe and Kickstarter. You can start campaigns and you can start actually getting government funding, grant funding, public funding. There are ways to go about doing this. So the shoestring budget of your operation of your private zoo is no excuse for not going in this direction. And if you want to bitch and moan and preach about the limited amount of wildlife of this particular creature that is in existence, that is not here in captivity, do something to change it.
but that was never.
All three of these people have the ability to do so.
Yeah, but that's never
They
what it
are
was
not.
about. And watching the documentary, it makes it obvious that that's never what this is about. But I would say to the grants or GoFundMe's or all that kind of stuff, that there's going to hit a certain point where people are going to realize, or governments are going to realize, they're basically subsidizing your bad decisions of continually breeding tigers for your own gain and then not being able to take care of them. And so honestly, the goal of the doc was to make sure people knew that this should not be allowed in this country, and it is.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be. And it's funny because it seems like it gets totally sidetracked by all the insane stuff happening between Joe and Doc and Carol and the few other people that, are major players in this. But in the end, if you really sit down and think about it, the goal of the doc was to say, this shouldn't be legal in this country. And you look at these insane people that own these tigers and these preserves and zoos, and you're like, nope, this doc was right on the money. These people shouldn't own it. And probably nobody should own these things. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
In reality, all three of these major players should be behind bars. Joe Exotic should be in prison. So should Doc, and so should Carol. They should all be behind bars. But at bare minimum, and you're right, this docuseries does have a message here, and it is what you just said, that this should not be allowed, and yet it is. But unfortunately, it also gets overshadowed by the insanity that is the inner workings of these places and the people that run them themselves. I mean, we're even treated to a glimpse inside all of their married lives. I mean, not just Carol's ex-husband, and Doc's polygamous cult, but Joe Exotic has married a total of 4 different men right now. 3 of them have not been gay. Oh, by the way, Joe is a homosexual. 3 of the men he married were not even gay. They married him for the showmanship and the money and to be taken care of. And then it goes down a further road as you see one of them high on, what was it, meth?
Well, hold on. I mean, the other thing to point out about Joe is he might not be the smartest person on the planet, but he is incredibly charismatic. And
He
so,
is.
so
Oh,
when you're
yes.
saying he convinced not one, not two, but three straight guys to not just like kiss or just fool around once, to marry him.
Yep.
And those were overlapping marriages too. Like,
Yeah,
that's
they were.
insane. That's nuts. Can you think about anybody that could ever convince you to do that? And that's the kind of person that we have in charge of this. And he's just rolling around on charisma trying to get everything going. And he happens to really like, he really likes these animals, but he also really likes exploiting them for his own gain.
Yes, he does. And to make matters even weirder, you even see one of his husbands, I believe his name was Travis, and I believe the drug of his choice was meth. Am I correct about that?
I can't remember what he was high on. I know they were saying that he had done that in the past, but I don't remember what they said he was high on at that point.
Well, you even see security.
I thought it was
It might have
weed.
just been weed.
I think
might
that was
have.
his drug of choice. Not that he hadn't hit anything else, but I think I remember them saying that Joe just made sure that there was always plenty of marijuana for him, and that was basically.
And he was always complaining that there wasn't quite enough.
And that was basically all that guy cared about at that point in his life at that time. And he was like, well, this is a way for me to get the weed that I want, and all I have to do is, I don't know, be married to this guy. I mean, I wouldn't go that far for it, but
No.
if that's all that's important to him and he's getting what he wants as far as his life is concerned, then I guess more power to him. But he made a miscalculation, I guess, is the best way to kind of not let that out of the bag. Do we want to actually go talk about that part, or do we want to leave that for
I
others?
think we do, because there's a bit of information that I found out while researching this episode that I think is pertinent to the discussion here.
Ooh. Dish.
So, Travis, his husband, was goofing around in one of the warehouses, and you even see security footage of this. Luckily, the footage that is shown in the documentary does not show this situation. It only shows a reaction. Okay?
I felt so bad for
That
that
is
guy,
important.
by the way. Like, I
did too.
I could not believe
seriously,
it.
how else would you react? We're not going to beat around the bush here. He's messing around, has the clip out of a gun, and says, hey, this gun won't fire without the clip in it. See? Pushes the gun to his head and pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
The gun goes off. He accidentally killed himself.
That's crazy.
And you're treated to the security cam footage of the guy that he's talking to, who I believe was in charge of IT at this point, or maybe he was the campaign manager for Joe's.
I think he did
political
both, but I
campaign?
think he was
I
the
think he did
campaign manager. He was definitely the campaign manager, and I think he was initially brought in to do like IT kind of stuff.
Right. Then you are treated to his reaction to this, as he is literally sitting there shell-shocked. Like, he just watched this guy accidentally shoot himself in the head and drop down to the floor dead.
And you can see in his face that he does not believe it. Like, he cannot, his brain will not allow him to comprehend what just happened for a little bit.
You even see him looking like at a couple of different angles, looking for like the squib or something like that. Like, how exactly did you fake this? How did you make this prank a reality? How did you pull this off? And it's not a joke.
Yeah.
This just happened, and you are forced to watch this tragedy. And then you are also forced to watch the tragedy continue even further, as at the funeral, Joe found a way to make himself the star at a funeral.
Yeah. It's just...
Oh my God. Standing there belting out his own songs that he wrote,
But does not sing. He does not sing them on the albums, in case you weren't sure. The music that they were playing, he might have wrote it, but that's not his voice, even though it shows him singing along in his music videos.
Accurate. Here's what I stumbled across. Lots of the major players for this documentary have come out and spoken since it has aired. with the large exception, not complete and total, but with the large exception of the three main players. They have not really come out and spoken to the mainstream media, the press, the bloggers, the YouTubers, etc., etc. But lots of the other people have. Lots of Joe Exotic's current husband. Lots of the people that have worked in Joe's carnival of sorts. It's not even proper to call it a zoo, to be honest with you. In Joe's fucking carnival. Lots of the people that used to be brainwashed by Doc, and lots of the people that have been utilized as slave labor, in their words, not mine, by Carol. One thing that I found very interesting is, and you know, it's accurate when you really think about it, Joe Exotic is currently in prison for a multitude of charges, one of them being conspiracy to commit murder. Joe has not seen the Tiger King. Joe Exotic is unaware that Travis's accidental suicide is in that show. And to this day, as of the time of recording this, because I looked this up again today just to make sure that this has not changed, nobody has told him. So there is this dark, tragic piece of Joe's life, this dark, tragic part of this dark tragedy of this high as fuck kid who accidentally shot himself in the head. Joe doesn't even know that the world has seen this. He does not know that this is in the documentary. And I'm honestly not sure how I feel about that.
I mean, I guess if you're in prison, you don't get everything that you should, or that you don't get all the things that other people get, right? You don't get the freedom, or you don't get to choose your food.
True.
You know, I get
the viewing
not
privileges
having,
and everything
like I get
that.
not getting to see the show. I get not getting to have Netflix in prison, whether you agree with it or not. Like, I understand that.
Yes.
But at the same time, if he is the quote-unquote star of this show, I mean, a star is kind of not the way to put it, but it's the easiest like connection that we can make for the moment. And you show something like that. He is the
titular Tiger King that the show is based around.
Yeah, if you show anything around that, I feel like that guy should know. Someone should have told him or should tell him, especially before they do any kind of episode talking about the show, like a reunion episode or whatever this new one's going to be when it comes out, or is already out, depending upon, you know, whether you're here with us recording or listening later, like you probably are. I would be worried about blindsiding him with that. I mean, I don't think that is the right thing to do. I don't think that's the fair thing to do. And I'm worried that they're going to do that.
We're talking about a lot of abhorrently immoral people in this documentary. I cannot wrap my head around this choice, and it feels extremely immoral in itself to not let Joe know that they're discussing and dedicate a sizable amount of time to this time in his life, to this part of the story, this part of the saga of Dirty Joe. I find that to be a bit immoral myself, because you're no matter if this documentary had altruistic views or reasons behind it, no matter what the reason for making this ultimately, at the end of the day, is a piece of entertainment. Okay? All documentaries are. All films are. All media is. Yes, it is there to inform, to teach. You know, Night of the Living Dead, I just released a YouTube video about it. It had a lot to say about a lot of different things. It was actually a political film. The zombies were metaphorical. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it is a piece of entertainment. The Tiger King is a documentary. It's meant to show us certain truths, but it is more than anything there to entertain. This accidental suicide of Joe's late husband was, whether you want to look at it this way or not, utilized for entertainment. And I cannot get it out of my head how immoral it feels to me to not at least let Joe Exotic know that that is in the show. Does that make any sense?
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with the final conclusion. I'm not sure I would argue that it was used for entertainment. You could argue that it does not have a place in a documentary about how big cats should not be kept in private zoos and they should be out in the wild. But
that argument is absolutely there to make.
I think you could absolutely make that argument, but I also think as soon as they started getting around Joe Exotic, this documentary, it's still about how big cats should be out in the wild and not caged up in these private zoos, but it became more about the craziness of the private zoos themselves to prove that point. And so when you shift that tone of the documentary to that direction, now any kind of weird, crazy, out there thing that happens, and there's a shit ton of them in this documentary, that now becomes a valid argument to prove your point, whether you agree with it or not. And I kind of come down on both sides depending upon my mood. As like, I'm not glad that I saw that. Like, not they don't show the actual action. I'm not glad that I saw the reaction. But at the same time, I think it's incredibly important to see, like, this is something that happened in one of these places. And this particular specific instance of insanity might be rare. But when you take it with all the other crazy out there things that are happening on all of these different ones, it just shows a pattern. Yeah, it shows a pattern of these people not being able to control themselves or control their organization, whether that's a private zoo or a foundation. It shows just how much these people shouldn't be in charge of anything, let alone dozens, if not hundreds, of giant, wild, dangerous animals and crews to help care and run these organizations. Like, I wouldn't put these people in charge of a fucking little league team, let alone giant killer animals.
Especially not Joe or Doc.
I don't know. Carol, if she had a financial opportunity to make some money off one of them, probably you don't want them around either.
Yeah, probably. Oh my God. I agree with everything that you just said. My defense of my statement that it's being used for entertainment value is simply the fact that it is on Netflix. It is being widely circulated. People are watching it. Documentaries are a form of entertainment, and it's not a throwaway thing. It's not something that they just put text up on the screen and said, this happened, or maybe showed a couple of still images of the aftermath, or, some video or something like that. And I'm talking maybe wrapping it within about 2 minutes of something like this happening. That is enough to establish a pattern. They dedicated a sizable chunk of an episode to this action. That is why I'm saying that. And I'm not trying to belittle it. And I'm not trying to belittle the documentary because I don't think that it handled it in a tasteless way. I think that it was actually done quite tastefully. My argument is not... I agree with you that the argument could be made on whether or not it warrants inclusion. The argument is there to be made. I personally fall down on the side of it's important to show because, like we were just discussing, it establishes a pattern. My moral quandary is whether or not Joe Exotic should have been at least notified. If not before, then at least by this point, that is in the documentary itself. To this day, Joe does not know that Travis's death is a plot point in this show.
Yeah,
I
think
is
that's
my
shitty.
moral quandary.
I think that is 100%.
Does that make more
shitty.
sense to you?
Absolutely. I just take issue with saying it's for entertainment. Like, just because you are entertained by something, I feel like they weren't trying to go shock value to entertain. No, but that's just what happened because they're trying to educate people. Yeah.
I apologize if my statement is coming across by me saying, oh, it was tastelessly done. No, it was tastefully done. But at the same time, it is in a piece a documentary that is there to teach, inform, educate, but also entertain. Therefore, its inclusion is ultimately, at least in part, therefore entertainment. That is my only argument toward that. I'm not saying that it was tasteless. It was tastefully handled.
Oh, yeah.
They handled a lot of the shit with, in my personal opinion, kid gloves. Okay? They could have gone a lot harder than they did. And they went plenty fucking hard. They could have gone deeper.
I don't know why. I feel like I take issue with the wording it as it's for entertainment. It almost makes it sound like, and I know this isn't what you mean, and I know you would agree that this is not how it was done. It almost makes it sound like it's some kind of like a snuff film, like just, oh, we killed somebody just to,
Oh God,
you know, and that's exactly, that is not what this is about. And
no,
something
not at all.
that you said,
you don't even see the action. All you see is the reaction.
Exactly.
And yeah, to be very honest with you, it could have been in that security footage, but they cropped it to make sure that it was not shown and just highlighted the reaction. It was not tasteless in the way that it's handled. It was shocking. It was gut-wrenching. It was, honestly, I teared up a little bit at that scene because it's just, like you said, it's the mentality of the people that are working there. I find it very difficult to call any of these places zoos.
Yeah.
Circuses and carnivals is far more accurate.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the personalities behind them. Colorful people, likable people. In fact, lots of these people seemed, the workers there I'm referring to, seemed like people I could legitimately kick back and have a beer with.
Yeah.
They seemed like very down-to-earth, interesting people to talk to. But where they were working, the insanity that is ensuing is astounding. It's absolutely astounding to me.
And the fact that people were still there, I guess. But you know what? They were definitely targeting vulnerable people. Joe was targeting vulnerable people who said, all right, has anyone come into town that doesn't have anybody? They don't have anywhere to go. They've been sitting at the bus depot for a couple of days. Nowhere to go. No one cares about them. No job, no nothing. It's like, all right, I'm going to drive up and I'm going to see if I can get them to come work for me. And I'm not going to pay them well. And it's going to be dangerous. But they don't have any other place to go. And I'm going to make them part of my family. And I'm not going to give them the means or the opportunity to leave for the most part, you know, because how do you do better, you know, when you don't have the money or the time to go do it? It is not just a full-time commitment. It is a 24/7 commitment for a lot of these people. You're living on the zoo. You work for the zoo. You're working 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days every day, not just 5 days a week, every day. Like, how do you break out of that, you know?
And some of the girls that worked for Doc even said that they were working 18, 19-hour days, 365.
I think the interesting
because that is what they do.
The interesting thing that like almost everyone said when they were asked, like, well, why did you put up with that? They're like, well, shit, you ever get to walk a tiger around on a leash? Or like, oh, hey, did you ever get to take a picture with a tiger cub? Like, it's so intoxicating and interesting to be with these exotic wild animals and just show that you're in control of them when you're not, or show that you should be next to them and you're hanging out with them when you shouldn't be. You know, like, it's just, there's some part of a lot of people that want to do that. I won't lie. Like, I saw the pictures of people, you know, the pictures people were taking with animals, and especially tigers and lions. You're like, oh, that's awesome. And for a long time, I've also thought about like, oh, how cool would it be to work with like big cats, big animals? Because I love little cats, and not to say that they're not dangerous. Like, I know it'd be really dangerous. That's probably why I would never do it. But now I'm sitting here watching this documentary and I'm like, oh shit, am I like secretly one of these people? Like, is that buried deep down inside of me just because I like think it'd be fun to work with big cats instead of a fucking bunch of douchebags at like an office?
Right. I feel you, man. I feel you. It's a difficult feeling that I even had watching this, because even after seeing all of this, I even said this already in the show, I still want to take a picture with a tiger cub. I really do. Knowing flat out that these cubs are being exploited. And here's the thing, I don't have a problem with these pictures and stuff like that of them as cubs. I don't have a problem with that. I feel bad that that's their these zoos' primary source of income is the exploitation of the baby animals. I feel terrible about that. But my issue truly comes with the treatment of the adult animals.
Yeah. The question is, why can't we have these pictures and have the organization that's setting it up doing good? That's the question. And maybe it's not possible.
Precisely.
Maybe it isn't possible. I'm not an animal activist. I'm not a general activist. So, I mean, I honestly I would believe if somebody was like, oh, there's just no way, because it just is a hotbed for corruption. You're just asking for corruption. You're asking for accidents. You're asking for problems. If you do that, you're opening up a door that should not be opened. And let's say, you're probably right. Because
here's the problem with that logic, though. We just saw the Tiger King. That door is not only already opened, it's off its fucking hinges.
But we're talking about, the question is, do we try to put the door back on the hinges and only let the right people through? Or do we just close the door? And what is the best thing, not for us and for what we want, but for the animals?
Right.
And so
absolutely,
that's the question that basically none of these people at these zoos or these foundations, at least the ones in this show, seem to be asking. They pretend like they're asking it. They pretend like they care. But when all the cameras are around them, it's all me, me, me. And I happen to have some animals, but me, me, me. Oh, look, I have this animal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, look at this animal that we saved. This animal's going to be doing so well. It's so happy. And maybe there's aspects of that, because it seemed like they did have like little zoo shows. Maybe they were educating people and it didn't make it in the documentary. I would be surprised if they cut out so much of that if it was there, but maybe they did because of all the other insane stuff. But if they're not educating people and they're just making it about themselves, and I'm Joe Exotic and I have cats and you should come see me and I'm the ringleader, they're props. You're using endangered animals, wild animals, as props to make yourself feel better and look like you're better than you are, and all this other shit that really is embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing that you're doing that. Like, you can't just say that I'm a piece of shit, that I want attention. You're going to use the plight of these dying, almost extinct animals, and you're going to pretend like you're helping them to gather their own little cabal of craziness. And then it's still just me, 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 me. Like, you have this charisma. All of these guys and Carol, they have this charisma to convince people to help them with what they're doing. It just sucks that what they're doing, as far as we can tell in the documentary, isn't good.
Precisely. This is the type of conversation that a documentary series like Tiger King should inspire. In the midst of all the craziness and all the colorful characters and all of the damn compelling documentary building, okay? This is the type of conversation that should be had. Unfortunately, not everybody is having that conversation. Adrian, I didn't actually get a chance to talk to you about all of this already, but there have been some interviews with some people, especially on Fox. Donald Trump Jr. and frankly all of the Trumps are viewers and fans of Tiger King. And Trump Jr. even has come out and said on air, I had no idea that it was so cheap to own a tiger cub. If that's the case, I should have bought one. You know what? Maybe I should right now. In the midst of a global pandemic, Donald Trump Jr. has actually talked about the possibility, and he wasn't joking, by the way,
I was going to say,
of going out and buying a tiger cub.
If he's joking, I could understand it. It's still the wrong time to make that joke, but I could understand it if he's joking, but I actually would fully believe that that's not what he's walking away from. That's not a joke. And that's sad, unfortunately.
And the saddest part is when asked about it by somebody in the press. I have no idea who, I don't know where, I only have the quotes. It was after Trump Jr.'s comment about owning a tiger cub. Apparently, Donald Trump right now is actually considering pardoning Joe Exotic.
I mean, it sounds insane and crazy and silly, but it also sounds like exactly something that Trump would do. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump sees a lot of himself in Joe Exotic. Maybe not the being gay part, but the very charismatic and, oh, look at all these trumped up charges. You know, they couldn't get him on.
Hey, my name's in that phrase.
Yeah, they couldn't get him on the attempted murder or the assassination or whatever that. So they had to slap on a bunch of these other like animal charges just to get a conviction, and that's not fair and that's not right. And yeah, I could absolutely see, and even beyond that, of Trump seeing himself in Joe Exotic, he can also see an opportunity to be part of the mainstream conversation in a non-pandemic way and saying, hey, everyone's talking about Tiger King. Hey, there's this guy from Tiger King that's in jail, and hey, I could pardon him, or I could do something to focus on me and on some kind of a positive, or at least just something that isn't deathly negative about the healthcare system going to shit in this country. Or like, you know, he can kind of shift some of that conversation onto something else. So from a strategic standpoint, I could see it. And from just a, you know, full of himself standpoint, as far as, you know, being birds of a feather, I could see that too. So like, and that's the sad thing. Like, it does not surprise me at all that that's a possibility.
Not at all.
Or even not even just a possibility, like a conversation.
Yes, because he also was not joking about that either. And going back to what you were saying, yeah, I agree with you. He probably does look at Joe Exotic and see a lot of himself in that. And he probably does see, you know, the fact that everybody's talking about Tiger King. It's the #1 show in the country. It's the #1 show on Netflix. Everybody's talking about it, tweeting about it, you know, everything. This show is so popular that they created an extra bonus episode to toss onto it because people are so obsessed with it. So yeah, he wants to be a part of the conversation, and it would not surprise me at all if he does pardon Joe Exotic. It doesn't surprise me at all. The problem is that he's having that thought. Joe Exotic was found guilty, whether or not he deserved it. He was found guilty on all charges, on everything.
Yeah.
Nobody watches Die Hard and roots for Hans Gruber. Okay?
Alan Rickman, come on.
Dude.
Rickman.
I like him too, but at the
Rickles.
same time, you watch Die Hard and you root for Bruce Willis. As much as you love Hans Gruber, you root for Bruce Willis. What is he legitimately fucking thinking? And that is the type of conversations that other people are having about this show. It's fascinating, and I never in a million years would have thought that that would be the case. When you told me that you wanted to put this show on our heat list, I said, okay, not a problem. I'm more interested in some of these other shows. Well, let me just tell you, those shows that I was more interested to, I still have not gotten to yet because I've been too busy down this rabbit hole and a couple of other rabbit holes that you threw on there. Because Tiger King is compelling. Is a compelling documentary, man.
It's compelling as fuck. I mean, like, really, like, just saying it's compelling is not even doing it justice. Like, there's a reason, even though it's been out for weeks, people are still talking about it. It's still the top thing. And the full thing's been out, aside from the upcoming or here to just released episode. Like, and it's, people are still talking because people are still discovering it because you just can't believe. You can't believe what you're hearing. You can't believe what you're seeing when you watch it. So if you haven't watched it, even after hearing everything we've talked about, like,
because we've only really scratched the surface.
There's more. Someone loses an arm. Like, it is fucking crazy. It is nuts. And every time you think, like, okay, it can't get crazier.
There's arson involved.
There's arson. There's accusations of who did what, and that there is a $3,000 hitman, or like, it's just like, it's both. It's simultaneously unbelievable and totally believable as you get further and further into it.
Yep. So once again, if you guys have not seen Tiger King, do yourself a favor, man. And it's not just so that you can be a part of the conversation. It's so that you can understand what the fuck is happening in this world. All right, go check it out. I cannot say that more sincerely than that. You need to go see this show. It's only 7 episodes, and we're all socially, quarantined anyway. So, what do you got to lose?
I mean, we watched it in 2 sittings, and we wanted to do it in 1, and we were getting pretty close. Like, I think we started watching
I don't doubt that.
We started watching it, I think, at like 10, and we stopped at like 3 in the morning, and we're like, okay, like, we really need to stop. Like, we were falling asleep during the episode we were watching at the end of that session, but it was so, like, you're just like, what the fuck? No, there's no way. And there's more, and it's crazier. That's not possible, but I have to watch it. Like, it is... It's an experience.
The only reason that it took me 3 sittings is because I specifically sat down for research after each one of the subsequent sittings. I'm like, I need some time to start looking into some stuff here. And oh my God, the layers that this documentary does not go to proves how tastefully done it is. You know, it's insane, but it's something that you just have to see and experience to believe.
Yeah.
But all right, man, we are pretty much up against the clock. Adrian, do you have anything else to tell the people out there?
Well, in my esteemed opinion, Iron Fist 3 was the most incredible Marvel show that they released on Netflix, and it's just a shame that we're not going to get to see any more of that.
I agree. And on that mercenary note, folks, we are out of here. If you've enjoyed what you're hearing, you want to help us out monetarily, keep the microphones going, keep the lights on, head over to patreon.com/Nerdynomicon. Donate $1 a month, $2 a month. We would really appreciate it. Every single dollar goes a long way into helping improve the show, improve our equipment, and bringing you guys even more free funny. Plus, there's a lot of fun perks and rewards over there as well. And if you want to get at us, man, Nerdynomicon on all social media, Facebook, email nerdynomicon@gmail.com. You can find us anywhere. Or, just check out the show notes.
They can find you anywhere.
They can find you, Kinga Awesome.
I don't think I've opened a Twitter. I don't think I've opened a message from Twitter or even logged into Twitter in multiple years, honestly.
Well, that's fair enough. But you're still there.
Somewhere floating around.
All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Until next episode, I've been Robbie.
And I've been Adrian.
Let's close the book.
The Tiger Book.
Book of Tigers. I honestly feel the same way. Like, I know that I was loud as a kid too, and I was goofy and weird and stuff like that, but I guess I remember around that part. And as loud and obnoxious as I am as an adult, I'm sure I was far worse as a kid.
Maybe. So. I don't know.
Shut up.
So anyways, Iron Fist 3.
So Iron Fist 3. All right, let me put this 20 minutes, 40 seconds.